How is it possible that everything feels like it's getting more expensive faster than inflation when inflation itself is only around 2-3%? On paper, it shouldn't feel this bad. Inflation is measured using the Consumer Price Index, CPI, a basket of goods and services tracked over time. Some prices go up, some go down, and on average, the basket slowly gets more expensive. And by the numbers, that's exactly what's happening.
Sometimes things is 4 times what they was a year ago. A roast I used to get for $12, $15, $35. It's awful.
Everything, just keeps going up.
Well, I used to spend $40 a week. Now it's $140 or something like that. I just don't think it's going to go down for a long time. They're not concerned with people like us.
Since mid-2023, official inflation has hovered around 3%, trending toward 2.5%. But that doesn't match reality for most people, because when you look at your actual spending, rent, food, insurance, transportation, it feels like everything is way more than just 10% higher than it was a few years ago. So what's going on?
Sandy, shoppers say they've been dealing with higher prices for what feels like a long time, and now we have a clearer picture. This year, food prices rose by 3.4%, with an even higher jump expected next year.
Look, 3.8% just shows you how hot the Iran war is driving up prices here. This is a significant jump here. 3.8%. Remember, the Federal Reserve thinks 2% is the sweet spot for inflation. 3.8% shows you how those higher energy prices are fueling in to just about everything.
It's just so expensive.
1. The average hides what actually matters. Not everything in the CPI is weighted equally. Essentials like housing, healthcare, insurance carry far more weight than things like TVs or movie tickets. Historically, the system worked like this. Essentials got more expensive. Non-essentials, tech, electronics got cheaper. That balance kept inflation moderate. But now, that second part is breaking. Tech isn't getting dramatically cheaper anymore. Cars are pushing $50,000. Software turned into subscriptions. Fast food isn't cheap anymore. So the offset that used to keep inflation low is disappearing.
When rent triples and wages don't, that money comes from somewhere. Where is it coming from? You're not raising minimum wage. It's still $7.25 an hour. Factories around here are paying $10, $12, $14 an hour, maybe $20 if you're lucky. When you do that math, it's not enough.
Quality adjustments distort reality. Here's where things get tricky. Statisticians adjust prices based on quality improvements. Example, if a phone costs more but has a better camera, faster processor, and more features, they may treat it as effectively cheaper. So even if you pay more, the system might record it as better value, lower effective price. But here's the problem. Most people don't actually need those improvements. If you're just texting, scrolling, and watching videos, you're paying more without getting meaningful extra value. So inflation looks lower on paper, but your wallet says otherwise.
Because of beef prices, people are so shocked they pivot towards chicken and pork. We're also expecting prices for both chicken and pork to increase as well.
You have a choice of gas or the food.
It's terrible, because I'm on a lower income.
Yeah, hot, but especially in the places where we have to spend money. So obviously that's gasoline, that's diesel, and that affects things like fertilizer prices. It goes right through the supply chain. So this ends up really at the grocery store where you still see food prices very high. Some of that is due obviously to diesel prices and fertilizer prices, but we just have this general trend of higher inflation. Christine mentioned the Fed likes inflation around 2%. Those days are long gone. Consumers know inflation probably isn't even 3.8%. It's higher than that when you think about the things we buy on a daily basis.
Housing is measured in a very indirect way. Housing is the biggest expense for most people, but it's not measured directly in inflation. Instead, it uses something called owner's equivalent rent, OER. Basically, what would your home rent for? That estimate gets used instead of actual house prices. This creates major issues. It lags behind real market prices. It ignores mortgage rates. It ignores maintenance, taxes, insurance. It ignores how expensive it is to actually buy a home. So the biggest cost in your life is only loosely represented.
The Realtor.com housing forecast tells us that we can expect some growth in home sales in 2026, powered by somewhat lower mortgage rates, which make buying a home slightly more affordable than it has been. We're talking about marginal improvements, not a big takeoff for the housing market.
For mortgage rates, Realtor.com sees mortgage rates falling to 6.3% from an average of 6.6% last year on the end of quantitative.
One of my favorite metrics to measure the health of the U.S. consumer is if you multiply the number of people working times the average number of hours that they work every week times average hourly earnings, you get a proxy for the household paycheck. How many people are working? How much are they working? How much are they getting paid? You know what the growth rate of that is for the last 12 months? 3.8%. Exactly the same as the CPI. So that tells you for the last year, in aggregate, the American household is treading water. The rate of gain in their aggregate income is 0. Right now, 2 months ago, before the inflation spike, it was positive 1.3%. They were doing okay.
Prices will continue to rise by 2.2%, but get this, accounting for inflation, prices will actually fall. As a comparison, home prices were up 2% last year. Altogether, affordability will improve, making 2026 the first year in 3 in which average monthly payments will slip below 30% of median income. Now, though the list of top price-gaining cities is sprinkled with some of the usual names like New York, Washington, each of those forecast to log 5% gains, they're also joined by a long list of blue-collar cities making their way onto the list of price gainers. Albany, Cleveland, Indianapolis, and Rochester will all see gains of more than 5%. Rochester homes will sell for 10.3% more year over year.
Things are getting worse, not just more expensive. Even when prices don't rise, quality often drops. This is where shrinkflation and enshittification come in. Smaller portions, cheaper materials, worse durability, reduced service quality, same price, worse product. That doesn't fully show up in inflation data, but you feel it immediately. Pricing is no longer consistent. Prices today aren't fixed, they're personalized. Companies now use dynamic pricing, meaning prices change based on your behavior. Your location, time, and urgency affect what you pay. Two people can pay completely different prices for the same thing. Even fast food works like this now. Use the app cheaper, walk in more expensive. So what even is the average price anymore?
The politicians are politicians and they're doing a job, they're making money, but we are here together. We are real people and we need to help each other get through these hard times because they're not seeing us on a personal level, but we can see each other on a personal level.
I think that the perception there is that the U.S. is in a lot of respects shooting itself in the foot, and that as a result of the way things are playing out here, the policy choices that we are making, we are weakening our own, the fabric of our society is weakening, our economy is more vulnerable, inflation is rising, we're worried about the labor market at the same time. I think that the Chinese are probably reasonably content with that state of affairs.
The one thing helping inflation is unstable. One category that has helped keep inflation lower, fuel and energy. Lower fuel costs ripple across the entire economy, but that's volatile and often temporary. If energy prices rise again, inflation pressure comes right back. The bottom line, you're not imagining it. The gap between official inflation and real cost of living comes from a mix of misleading averages, quality adjustments, broken housing measurements, declining product quality, dynamic pricing systems. On paper, inflation is stable. In reality, your cost of living, especially as a younger working professional, is rising much faster.